Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. Before I start off, whoever's listening to this, I'd appreciate it if the viewers can state in the chat section from where in the world they're listening from, and uh, uh, feel free to share comments on what is being said. Anyways, I'm gonna give the talk and then oscillate between engagement with the chat section. So I found myself confronting an unavoidable situation. I realized that I have been conditioned through a singular dimension approach since my childhood, only to discover that there are more dimensions. And the discovery of dimensions, it came at first, I was looking at it externally, like in a science fiction way in my youth, but then I began to see that there are dimensions within. How can I tell you? It's like there's a dimension of activity, then there's a dimension where all that activity is simultaneously being aware of itself. The simultaneity of awareness of how in one moment there's various phenomena, it began to fascinate me. Aldous Huxley, this is a quote I want to begin with. Aldous Huxley has this very nice quote where he says, "There are things known and there are things unknown. There are things known and there are things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception."
Greetings. Please restrict dangerous experiments to designated areas.
Ah, you again. I suppose.
So Aldous Huxley said there are things known and things
True.
unknown. There are
The
things
gate
known and there are
said-
things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception. That means the human perception finds itself really all of its known, it's all of everything it knows, divided between the known and the unknown. If I ask you what are you excited about the day, it most likely it is something with the unknown. You know, usually there, even with love, one can say there's something with the unknown.
Tell me you
There's
have
something
something.
fascinating about the unknown. Everything
You should
I
get
have
moving.
been
I need to
drawn
leave
towards
orders.
in my life had to do with my fascination, and my fascination had to do with my current reality, noticing that there's more than what it sees. I feel behind our eyes, we are all strangely stranded on the island of our own subjectivity, how we hold the world or experience the world as a subject. And so if one seeks certainty of just their inner realm, after a while they will feel, how can I tell you, they will separate themselves from the world. It's like this, there's a name for it, I just don't remember the name. It's this issue when any human being anywhere in the world, the moment they consider themselves special, they will subconsciously separate themselves. And so I consider that to be an error, but I'll speak about it later. So this door that Aldous Huxley is speaking about between the known and the unknown, I consider it to be a revolving door. And I consider human life and how we are personalities
dare you,
has to be
Khaled.
fundamental
Your mother wanted a
with
better
when we come
future for
into
you.
consciousness, when
Because
we
of
wake
that
up in the day,
total
and then there's a
Now,
conscious
I-
sense of being and activity and free will, and in some sense unconscious states.
See what?
In
That
ancient
following the
Vedanta, they would
predictions of
speak
a
in the
deluded
Buddha,
machine
they
got
said
my mother
there's
killed.
There's actually 4 states, but they said there's 3
Prognosticator
major
is a fraud.
states, and these
See if
are
I
the
don't.
waking state. Literally all human beings experience waking up. Then there is the dream state. You know, a majority of human beings experience dreaming. And then there is the mystery of the deep sleep state. This is by far one of the coolest things that human beings do. that at some point throughout their, once they have become conscious, they stop all activity, close their eyes, and the body becomes inactive as a personality. In deep sleep, there is no ego, there's no suffering, there's no illusion, there's no heaven, there's no hell, it's just a gap. And that is very important to consider. That's kind of like the unknown X variable. It's like when a person is asleep, you know, who knows what the soul is doing. For me, it's a cycle. It's a cycle where in certain states of mind, you're functioning through subjective answers and hence knowledge. There's certain moments in life where the being knows, where the being can engage the environment and get a sense, get a sort of life sensitivity for how the moment is present. But there are moments where the unknown enters. One can even say the transition out of this plane of existence is the unknown. That means it's like the moment you have free will simultaneously, there will be moments where life will move you before you can move it. And when the person is younger, mainly life is moving. And the life of society, the life of the family, the life of civilization, the kind of media. We can say that a lot of children on the planet, their access to the world out there, or the meaning they're given to of the world out there, comes from media. You know, the internet is very unique. When you look at the mob mentality, you will find it, for example, certain countries where propaganda was intense. For example, I remember reading that certain dictators, tyrants in the world, the way they captured the mob was that they made young people participate. When young people participated, they felt proud of their action. So whatever idea they participated in, it's as if the youth of the world are at risk of having their allegiance to ideas that are not their own. You know, that's the one thing that when I look at the educational system, I just, face palm myself and I'm like, what? 8 billion unique different beings. However, they have to adjust their inner self for the outer self. That means an educational system that makes you self-censor your inner realm, is an educational system that doesn't care for the mind of the being. It just cares for the output of the appearance of intelligence. That, in other words, the educational system doesn't care about knowledge. I feel it's like there's going to be a unique thing happen in the future where I say the educational industry and let's say the education sector, I see eventually all businesses, all corporations becoming schools and all schools becoming corporations. In other words, it would be an endless, just like it would be an endless education. And that's an inefficient civilization. That means there are two, how can I tell you, there's a soldier that hasn't been on the battlefield and learns of the battlefield, and then there's a soldier who has been on the battlefield. That soldier who has been on the battlefield is acknowledging a more accurate existential reality. But the person who hasn't been on the battlefield, they are subjectively trying to experience what it would be like in the battlefield. Therefore, they will always be missing that. So it's like this is an important skill to learn in this life, and I find that is to know when to
This
look
year he'll
beyond your
select
own
me for
eyes,
sure.
to see more than your own convictions. Beliefs are like boxes. Everybody can put a box on their head. Everybody can suddenly believe this and believe that and believe this, when it is only the value of direct experience rather than belief in indirect language. So anyways, to steer this more to the core of what I wanted to communicate in this talk is that we are an intelligence that receives the moment, literally the moment, in a singular, it's as if you are, the intelligence of the being is a data processor. It's from a single object.
Sent us far. Yes, the metal. Crow friend. I am glad I found. No. Follow me.
objective dimension from one world. It is extracting sensory perception and it is processing it. I am considering subjectively. That means one of the most important questions to ask in all philosophy since till the end of time, this would be an important question. Is objective evolution the attempt of matter to become more than matter? That is the question. Because when I look at evolution, sure, I can totally see adaptation, I could see survival of the fittest, but it wasn't just survival of the fittest. It was survival of the fittest value to self. After we physically survived, then we started to care about deeper levels of luxury. What that means is, it's like only when we built a civilization, we stepped out of the jungles and we weren't being chased by wilder beasts, that we managed to build a world where then we could choose what to wear, choose what to drive, and choose. So it's literally as if the human species is the oldest son of Gaia that has left the house of nature. In other words, your imagination has become the responsibility.
You'll have to
of
find another
how
way
your
round.
creator and this may be a bit bold of me, but I feel I have found a way to map, a very simple way through mathematical language to kind of explain how this plane of existence moves. And the purpose of the plane of existence is not linguistic. That means language. Governed by fire. You know, that language is energy that happens. What I'm saying is that regardless of what knows, at some point, language breaks. It's not that it breaks, it can't mirror God knows. So one can say it's like right now I'm speaking to you, I am using words. So instead of thinking the words are me, as you who are listening, think as if there's a user. There is a user you can't see of these words, and then you're just seeing how the words come out. So you see what I mean? It's like the attention, your attention is the most divine thing, you know? Sometimes I think it was a miracle that he created the concept of a miracle. As a species, you know? It's all fascination about the unknown and how you respond also to what has come and been known. You see, scholars say there are two worlds that people live in. There's a world that was here before you were born, and there's a world and that world also will still be here after you transition out of your form. Like actually being in a form. Human intention transcends its own subjective skin into collective rhythms. So believe it or not, it doesn't just because the human individual is asking the question, doesn't mean the ultimate epitome of evolution is human thought. There is a huge chance that in the future, what we so simply eventually it's made Sorry guys, this thing was off the roof and I was just talking. So I don't know what the last thing is that people heard, but I'll say, guys, I was looking at the comments and really I perceive life to be an oscillation between the known and the unknown. The unknown can appear empty, the known can appear infinite. Terence McKenna, he speaks about culture. I got first introduced to him when he was talking about culture, and he was talking about how culture is not your friend, how ideology is not your friend. And the reason ideology is not your friend is because it is causing you to identify with subjective landscapes. So guys, just treat what I'm doing with these talks as a kind of playful, I treat these talks as a kind of canvas where I give myself freedom to draw. And when a person takes the artist's approach, they have to find the inner honor before they can actually do anything creative. So. Alright, I'm stalling here. Let's get this on. I forget the term. There's this concept in tech, the input what you input is the output. So the energy and the effort you put into your life, that's the kind of output you get. If you're a person where your inner realms want things externally, where you have not the inner realms haven't put an externalized yet, that means you haven't put an external effort. It's as if you haven't input an effort into this engine of the universe that we find this moment we find ourselves. It's like really you have to reclaim. Terence McKenna, I remember he said, reclaim your mind. Mr.Within will tell you, no, it's not even mind. Reclaim your authentic attention. That's it. There's a simplicity that in every complex thing that you have seen or that has overwhelmed you has had the ability to confront it. We are creatures that are conditioned as characters in a story, and we may go one lifetime feeling we're a certain character in a story, but the novelty of life, how there's the new, is more fascinating. That means, you tell me, could the educational system teach something new, or should it keep teaching the same things before? On some level, maybe the educational system has a responsibility to try to teach the same thing to everybody so they can see the similar things, but on another level, Terence McKenna also says that culture evolves as fast as its language does. That means the language that is being reality for you, when it shifts, when it moves, one can say if your consciousness had been changed, it would also be a shift of the language and your attention. So I'm kind of saying we are receiving objectivity and somehow it's appearing as multidimensional subjectivity. And it's occurring instantly. That's the unique thing about it. And a lot of life trusts it. It's like a person may feel they distrust life, they may even feel like they're a bad person, but they may suddenly realize that what is life but a natural system? It's like that tree has emerged and it's growing, it's existing. Just similarly, the human being is a creature. It's a part of nature, literally like a fruit growing on a branch. Human consciousness entered this game. And so the way nature moves, and there's literally no opinion on something that is already happening. So that's the contentment one will find in nature. And it will be actually an experiential collective will rather than a kind of existential individual will. That means like there's something I say and I feel the wise ones of the world may hear it. That really when you actually wonder about multiplicity, when you wonder about the mysteries of the subjective realm, you shouldn't touch it. When I say you shouldn't touch it, that means as your consciousness navigates, it must maintain its sincere state. if you deviate from, and if you for yourself cause an action which you resist, then it would be as if like forget karma, you're hitting yourself. Honestly, it's like we have found a mirror for our body. You know, a person could go in front of a mirror and observe how they exist as an objective physical being, right? But what is that mirror for the mind? How can we find a mirror for our mind? And so, what I find to be the mirror of the intelligence of the mind is what becomes animate in the moment. That means it's like, how can I tell you, even when you look at how even animation films are made, it's like a picture with an inspiration to move. And I find that's how our psychologies are appearing. You know, all those people in the kind of self-help motivation thing, I kind of found it ridiculous. How can someone help a self that nobody else has its eyes? You know, it's like when you realize no one has your eyes, you know, it's like therapy becomes meaningless because you're paying to explain. And I'm not saying anything about like clinical work, which is required for our species, but I'm saying that, like, for me, our ancestors, you know, had to wake up at night, you know, and then, you know, kiss their family goodnight because they had to pick a sword and run to defend their village. Like it was an extreme time. All the suffering that human beings are considering now, if they saw how life was back in the day, they wouldn't feel ashamed. They wouldn't feel weak. They would just feel ignorant. And it's better to feel ignorant than weak. Because when you feel weak, you have accepted the lesser archetype. But when you feel you have been ignorant, that it means there's still progression allowed. I remember the first sentence I wrote, and I remember it was the first moment I felt it was my entrance into my own universe as a writer. Yeah. It was the sentence I wrote, I don't want to live in a world that looks the same the next day. I remember I wrote that on a piece of paper, you know, and put it on my wall. I don't want to live in a world that looks the same day. And every time I would see that quote, there would come rushing in this wonder like new day. What did you see? What did you get out of it? Imagine you've already paid for this advanced program. And so you suddenly open your eyes and you see there's certain values given. There's a certain characteristic to the world, you know? This may sound a bit intense, but I've written in one of my science fiction works, which is called an alien called language. You know, I created this world where in the sci-fi world, okay, here's the story. I don't remember what year I had said it in. Like, I wrote this story a while ago. But anyways, what happens in the story is that human beings have messed up Earth. They have managed to make either some sort of sky city. So the Earth is like this black ball, but, you know, but around human beings are living in the orbit. They're living in the orbit of the planet. in these sky cities, I had created a kind of situation where human being had lost a lot of its knowledge, and so the sky cities were being governed by a person who was a general dash king. He was literally treated like a king, and he was a kind king, you know, but with egoic king. And this egoic king that was managing all the sky cities, he always had general clothing on because he was actually a general on Earth before the Orcs. And so this king, you know, the story begins where the schools and sky cities are teaching vague histories. They're teaching like meaningless history of the Earth, you know. And the story begins when this general king is sitting in this kind of like king's throne. Imagine a person with a general suit sitting in a king's throne, you know. And he's sitting there, and his councilmen are there, and his other people are there in general clothing, you know. And then suddenly an alien appears, and in this story, in this what happens on that sky city in that throne is that an alien appears, and this alien is the first alien I thought that makes contact with human species. And imagine the first alien that makes contact with human species doesn't make contact on Earth. Human beings messed up the Earth, you know, so they messed up their chance for any sort of it's like when we mess up the Earth, we can't call ourselves extraterrestrial. We can't call ourselves terrestrial. Terra is it means Earth. Sorry guys, my attention went elsewhere. What happens is this suddenly, the king, the general king stands up kind of shocked. Everybody in the throne room stands up shocked. And this alien appears, and his body was very hard for me to describe, but he appears as some sort of like morph suit of light, you know? And so, as he's appeared, this alien, you know, this alien is so advanced, and it's an enlightened alien, so it has, in the story, this alien doesn't do anything cruel at all. And he comes to the general king, and he's like, the alien comes in, and it's like it scans him in an instant. In like a couple seconds, it scans all the whole like galactic sector. And so the alien says to the human being, you know, I am here to enlighten. Just he downloads like all the language, you know, gets access to all the telepathic fields, and so he says, the alien says to the human being, to the general king, he says, I'm here to enlighten your civilization. In other words, the alien was an alien that would go around to different evolved civilizations and give them galactic memory. Like literally from after they have endured as on the island of their history, they would suddenly given access to the galactic history of the, you can say, galactic awareness, right? So this alien is here to kind of bring all human beings to a next level of awareness, right? So the alien is there, and then this human being, all of them by the presence of the alien, are just like nobody's dishonest around this alien. And the general king says, who are you? And then the alien, after it's scanned, it says, call me language, because your intelligence as human beings hasn't evolved beyond language. So that's why the story is called An Alien Called Language. The alien says, you can't just call me language. You don't know, your minds can't fathom anything else. And so the alien is there, and suddenly this general king looks at the alien and says, please, before you enlighten everybody, you must teach my son. teach my son. And then the whole story is when the alien and the son of the general came. So the whole story is conversations between this alien and this kid. And the kid, the son of the General King, would come after school every day. He was the only kid that every day after school would come and look outside. Just look outside and see the black man. And so the story becomes really cool, because then the kid is asking questions from this alien, this enlightened alien, from language. He's asking questions from language. And the kid says, if I remember correctly, the kid says, "Are there any human beings on the earth down there?" And the alien looks and scans and says to the kid, "Yeah, there are 7, but they are so savage. They have become so savage and animalistic that they will never incorporate into societies. So it would be cruel to save them." Something like that. And the kid gets shocked, And then the whole story is the kid starts asking questions about himself. After he's done asking questions himself, he starts asking questions about language. Where did you come from? And in that whole story, it's like an example of how this alien called language gives galactic memory to this kid. And then the kid realizes he never was a kid. It's like consciousness shifts in the story. I feel, Sabu, when you say, can perception change itself? Well, what is perception? What is this thing that we call perception? It's a moment where it's like a spherical awareness in the moment, and in this room of your awareness, there is an objective self where the awareness seems to be projected from, and this objective self has an ability in moving, and as it moves, it accesses different screens of perception. With different screens of perception, it reanimates itself differently. So strangely, it's like it's an oscillation between the known and the unknown, the free will and the will of nature. And in the moments where it's free will, you can subjectify it. You can try to comprehend like a character in a story. But in the moments where it's like nature is moving before you are, then you are in some sense the glimpse of a drop in a river. That means there's no individual archetype. That means sometimes some questions, strangely, their answer is how the question, in its effort to wonder about itself, dismantles itself. So I have gained answers in this life to some of my questions by the answer kind of coming in and destroying the question, and sometimes the question being destroyed once the context was more studied, more concentrated. So the thing is it's like, think about it this way. Imagine you wanted to be a good soccer player. What would you do? You would get a ball and start moving it around with your foot. You would start trying to treat the ball as if you are familiar with it. So what that means is you go through many days of doing mediocre level skill, and then suddenly, once there is consciousness added to the equation, that skill becomes intensity. And if that intensity can be tamed, then you can use the word mastery. If there's no intensity to be tamed, the concept of a master doesn't exist. And it's about the relationship of a creature for the first time beyond the language threshold. The language threshold is a concept I've created where language is limited, and in some sense it's an experience that we haven't put words to, or we can't put words to. The way life is being experienced is not just conceptual.
Watch your step, Featherless. These stones are near to ruin, just like everything else here.
Once the person is so if life becomes nothing, you have acknowledged that it can be nothing. And after you have acknowledged that, that's being confronting the zero dimension. After you have confronted space, then the mind has an ability to acknowledge the singular. The singular is the one dimension. That means your intelligence in the moment can not only perceive yourself as an object, you can perceive many other objects. You can see individuality. Another human being to individualize in whatever they way. It's a freedom to see individual objects and individual subjects. Now, after you're comfortable with this stuff, with this atoms and stuff, first you're going to become comfortable with this stuff. Atoms in this space. Once you confront the space, and you confront it, once you confront singular objects in space, you're content with it. You're content with individuality in all forms. There's different kinds of cups.
Left, Featherless! Always left!
There's a conflict with the presence of phenomena.
Tight corners ahead, Crow Friend. Careful. Which way? Which way? Ah, right! Go right!
to a kinetic system. Night requires good requires bad. You know, chaos requires order, bad meaning. That means how do you know you're a good person by having the reference against that? How do you know you're a bad person by having the reference by what is good? So your morality reference.
Follow the water, fat legs. Ah, east.
So one can say it's as if after you have constructed the dualistic, you know, I say that there are two exits. And I kind of told you to there are two exits out of the dualistic dimension. So after you're comfortable with chaos and order, as the poet Rumi says, chaos and order are like two wings of a bird. You know, that means they are required for the mind to exist. So don't fear chaos, but don't obsessively search order. These are wings of a bird. The mind requires space and matter to have concentrate on the singular part. That means if there's a bunch of problems, focus on one first. You know, it would mean go towards the simplification of the singular, or it would mean go through the advancement and complexity of the infinite. That means one would say, Mr. Within, if you're saying there's a zero dimension, one dimension, two dimension, and instead of three, you're saying infinity, why isn't there a three and a four and an endless numerological kind of dimensional system? And I'll tell you, because after you have duality, you can access eternity, infinity. Once you can access infinity, that means any dualistic spectrum can copy itself. It's literally like a right-angle relationship where two dualities share the singular point. When they share the singular point, the edges of the duality, it's like you are witnessing your story of life as you're living. And that story of life is dualistic. It's ideological. It puts you as a form. You're identifying with how you're feeling. This is why when you go look at the Eastern approach to enlightenment, they're running after the Lord. When you look at the Western approach to enlightenment, they're running after the truth. When you look at in Eastern, cultures, I'm telling you, discipline is so crucial. It's like the world, the human beings, of course you can't really use geography as a kind of basis for this argument, but I'll say this, like, you are comfortable with the space in the room, you're comfortable with a singular form in the room, you're comfortable with multi-dimensional versions of the singular and also multi-dimensional variations of the singular. And after you're comfortable with the realistic multi-dimensionality of how reality is contained in a story, in a character,
draw your weapons. One of Nocturnal's fuck queens hides in that church. Sour taste. No shiny bits.
Do your worst, Night Hag. You'll get nothing from me.
It's like, and you consider the meat separate.
I will not be interrupted.
And you can say that if the leaf falls, when the leaf hasn't fallen, you know, that means I can do the condition of like, okay, this implies that every
captain wouldn't defend just any gate. This must lead back to the city. Follow me.
Where everybody's running towards success, and it's like the civilization is suffering because of that. Because when you run too fast, you pass by many things, and if you were gentler...
I recognize this place. These are the tunnels that lead to the Coggadum. Looks like the factotums put up a fight when the shadow came through.
And the way society is built nowadays, especially modern society, it's all about increasing your speed. You know, this is why art is not dead. It's like those who are meant to see art.
Liquid shadows, some kind of nocturnal light. I've never seen the like.
Art is not dead. Art is alive. You know, it's the world. It's the audience that their attention.
Wait, I remember.
And so
Lord
when
Sid taught me a
civilization
spell long
suddenly
ago.
imagine.
He said
I don't know how.
I couldn't find a use for it then, but now. Yes, he said that logic and wisdom would part the shadows of doubt. It worked! How could he have known? Never mind. Meet me at the entrance to the Coggadum. We have work to do. I don't often admit surprise, but I'll be candid. That was one of the weirdest journeys of my life. And I've lived a very... With the shadow barrier removed, we can move freely between the Brass Fortress and the Coggadum again. Now we have a Daedric Tighten that armor and sharpen your weapon. Beyond what... You know I don't... The shadow's got to be approaching the throne by now. We have to hurry.
And I'm going to extend this now to the biology. And I want to show you the website for free articles.